Hey folks, my name's Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Bootser. Black Hand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored. Welcome back for another episode. And this one is a bit of a humdinger here. In fact, it's a real humdinger. We're going to talk about old school mob, right? In fact, in this picture here up on the screen, you can see right here is Weddle Buff, the founder, Weddle Buff Flores from Hawaiian Gardens. Uh, Goes by Buff and Buffalo. I knew him personally. I met him, been to his house, had tamales at his home with his wife Lupe. I know his kids. I know all his family actually. I knew him, and I knew him to be the founder of the organization, or one of the individuals who came up with the concept of creating a gang of gangs for the organization. Right? In fact, they didn't have the foresight to envision that it would become what it's become. At that time, it was just a bunch of apex predators, killers among killers, and that's what they started, right? Group of juveniles at DBI in 1956 or 57 came up with the concept of starting the Mexican Mafia. I also knew Joe Morgan, depicted here, and I knew Topo Peters. He was my co-defendant in my crime. I think this is A.B. Hernandez. This is Cheyenne Cadena. This is Mike Mulhern. I think that's Jadeno Jordan. In fact, he was half black, if I'm not mistaken, in this picture. And I don't know who this individual is. I'm sure Mundo knows, and he's probably done it in a previous episode. But this is what I remember the mob to be. When I got into the organization, there were still carnales like this. I mean, Joe was still around, Topo was still around, Buff was still around. I met those guys, right? In fact, Joe was one of the guys who voted me in Folsom State Prison. I never got a chance to meet Cheyenne Cadena. He got eliminated in Chino, California, by the Nuestra Familia, way before I came along. But this is in my mind. This is what it was. This is what the organization was, and this is what I was becoming a part of when I was inducted in 1985, when I was in Folsom and Shoe 2. And they had swag. They had this gangster swag about them. The Mexican Mafia was the Mexican Mafia then. It wasn't. It hadn't evolved, right? It was still basically a prison gang. And some other pictures that show some of these individuals here. I knew Vicente Gutierrez, Chente from I think he was from Islos, one of those barrios. And I think this is Frankie Mays. I knew Frankie Mays as well. That's uh, Kiki from Primera. Some of these other individuals, obviously, is Champ Reynoso, the head of the federal faction, actual federal commission in the Bureau of Prisons, right? And some of these other cardenales I never met. I never knew them. This was a little bit before my time. But I did know Chente and Frankie. I was in DBI with Kiki, uh, and actually did one of my first hits for him. Him and Gator from Florencia. They wanted me to whack a guy by the name of Angel from Santa Monica. Angel from Santa Monica was later eliminated in Los Angeles County Jail. And then I met Chente in Los Angeles County Jail. He was there with me in high power when I was fighting my homicides, and really cool, easygoing brother. I was with him also in Pelican Bay State Prison. And this is what the mob was back in that day. That's what I remember it to be, right? Guys like this. Like you could see these guys had metal. They had steel in them, right? They had that look. Look at this guy right here. That's a ferocious look. All these guys. You don't want to cross these guys. And you knew that about the Ebe back then. Even here, this is, I believe, a 1970s picture. And this is Chavo Chavez right here. Raymond Perez, Chavo from Bakersfield. A young, handsome Chavo from Bakersfield. I met the older Chavo in Folsom State Prison. That's where I met him first, right? And David Arriaga, I believe this is it. This is a spider. I forgot what hood he was from. But I met him in Palm Hall. I knew these guys. And these was, And not all these guys are founders. Just keep it in mind. Some of the individuals I identified as founders were founders, but these other guys are second, third wave in the organization. But this is still when the mob was the mob, right? This is when carnales were carnales, and I dare say that it had a reputation. The organization had a reputation that it had a certain way of doing things, and there was a ferocity to the organization. Like you crossed the M and you were gone. That was it, and that was all, right? There was no green lighting, no 39 sopas, no fines, none of that stuff. In fact, the organization embraced camaradas, and it was really rare that a camarada uh, got hands put on them. You know, I mean, and in that day, in that time, and when some of the original principles were around of the organization, it was like if you raised a hand to a camarada, it was to eliminate him because a camarada was really, really a camarada, right? Not this 19-year-old Edgar crap, on hood, dead homies, none of that stuff. None of that stuff was around. It was about camaradas, and camaradas were real friends of the organization. They were really known. Now it's a self-affixed title that individuals call themselves camaradas, but back then it wasn't. Camaradas were known to the organization, they were trusted by the organization, and they've been around for decades. So everybody knew who they were. They knew their bona fides, they knew what they did on the yards, they knew everything about them. And the carnales were carnales at that time. There was always politicking in the organization, and that's always going to be. It's part of a cannibalistic organization that feeds upon itself, right? I heard it best once phrased in a news clip where one guy says it's like a tank of piranhas and there's no food, so they start eating each other, and and that's what the organization does, right? But again, this was then. Even in some of the later times, right? Some of the later times in San Quentin, this was Bill Frisbee. I knew him personally. I met him in Orange County. This is Perico Ochoa, the guy that we see complaining in the hotel secret videos all the time. And this is Carlos Diaz from San Diego, Robot. Let me make a little clarification on Carlos right now. He was, in fact, hit. He was hit by a camarada who was tweaked out, got paranoid of meth, and two camaradas ran in to save him. So he was stabbed recently by a camarada, which brings up another issue that we're going to touch on in another episode. I'll just keep that in my hat for the moment. But he was stabbed multiple times. Two camaradas ran in to save him. I don't know what the status of him is now. I know he was in the ICU at the time I made the last video. I wanted to clarify that because I made a mistake in the last video, and I wanted to make it clear that I did make a mistake, and I'm clarifying that now. And this is Big Puppet from Florencia. This was the king of Florencia back in the day. And this dude was a hog. All these guys are freaking hogs right here, right? They're all hogs. This is, believe it or not, T-Bug Moreno. This is T-Bug from Norwalk. This is Richie from El Centro, and this is Daryl Castrejon. This is when San Quentin was a rockin'. They used to call it Little Vietnam. And the MS still had its reputation of being gangsters, right? Being gangsters. And camaradas were camaradas, and they carried themselves as such. As such. There was no change in the ideology and the mentality and the philosophies of the organization. There was no change in that. It was still like traditionalists, right? And these were the lords of discipline in the organization. Really, the lords of discipline. San Quentin brothers were a different breed. Like, these are straight cutthroat guys. San Quentin had a whole different mode of operation than Folsom. Just like Folsom was more liberal in its approach, right? San Quentin was cutthroat, right? And these are the brothers here, and I think this is East Block or AC. I'm not sure which. Uh, but Daryl got this patch on his eye right here, Daryl Castrejon, after stabbing a Crip on the tier. And we're going to go into that story too. I got the whole story, I got the whole get down. How Sporty from White Fence was supposed to, Ambrose Gill was supposed to do the hit. We're going to go into that in a later episode. But I wanted to show you some traditional stuff about the organization and how I perceived it to be and how it was when I got in the organization. Because I got in just a little after this picture was taken here. I got in 1985. Even some of the older Cardenales still had that mentality. In fact, I know most of the people in this picture. That's T-Bug Moreno right there. That's A.B. Hernandez. Between him and Rube, there's a toss-up between which is the oldest member because A.B. Hernandez from Sacramento lives in Sacramento. He's an old man now. Is been off parole for years, still an active member, still in good graces. Uh, Somebody said it was Rube Soto who was the oldest guy. I think it's A.B. Hernandez. I could be mistaken, but it's a toss-up between those two. The next individual here is Black Don Barella, my brother, my buddy. You know, he passed away in federal prison of an overdose. I don't know this individual here. I don't know this individual here. This is Mike Fernandez, my homeboy Negro, little Negro from Artesia. I knew him well. In fact, I did robberies with the guy back in the day. This is Smilon Gallardo from Hazard. This is Ronald Baez from Ontario. And I don't know who this individual is here. This is my era right here. This is my era when I came into the organization. So this is mid 80s when this picture was taken. And this is when, you know, the mob was a mob. And these camaradas were camaradas. They looked like camaradas. They acted like camaradas. But there was a shift somewhere. There was a shift somewhere, a distinct shift in the ideology and the mentality and the cultural influences within the organization, right? And that was a noticeable shift. Anybody started calling themselves a camarada. Uh, you heard that phrase tossed around in the multiple wires that I put up, and you've heard some of the language they've used. I mean, then there was Lalo. That was another generation after me. Lalo got made, and everybody knows that Lalo took over the county jail, right? After Mosca left, Lalo inherited the county jail, and for Lalo, he became a businessman, right? He started exercising an infrastructure that was established by Mosca Torres, but in doing so, he incorporated, I would say, lesser quality individuals, right? Anybody who came along in that county jail was good enough to take a position of leadership. And we've shown that through a number of people and audio that we put up on the channel in the Wiretap series, right? There was Michael Sperling and Lisa Sperling and a bunch of individuals who had chorro of the mouth, right? That they would talk about anything on the phone. The organization started changing, right? From the old school to the new school. And cultural influences started impacting the way the organization did business, right? The objective became money and power, right? And then she came along, old Sky Virgin. Yep, you know she was going to pop up in here somewhere because she brought along with her the Edgar mentality. Yeah, we're talking about the Edgars here. The Edgars have risen. In fact, there's one clip I really want you to hear. We played it. We played it before, and I want you to hear her voice in this. I want you to hear what they say and the context of the conversation. Here we go.
Nigga, like that ain't well. If you stop talking to me, oh well, fuck it. It is what it is. That's how I feel, nigga. You know.
Nigga, I don't give a fuck. What the fuck you want me to do? Like, what the fuck?
Hey, what's up? Hey, remember that number that I told you to call last time? They didn't call back?
No.
No? Yeah. Yeah, I'm already knowing. Yeah. Well, anyways, you want me to, what number you want me to give this one? This one or the other one? You said the other one's gonna go off too, nigga, so.
Look, for right now, give them the, for right now, give them the 909. When I get a new number, I'll shoot it to you guys.
Okay, but, so your other one, the 951 ain't gonna change no time soon then?
Yeah, it's this month.
Okay, this month, okay. Hey, make sure you give me another one though so I can keep on calling your little dumbass.
For what, nigga? For what?
Oh, there you go with your bullshit. See what I'm saying, nigga?
Why you like... Fuck, nigga? What the fuck for? For what? What are you talking about?
Shut your little ass up, nigga. Don't get on fight with me, nigga.
Man, because I don't give a fuck. Doesn't think you don't understand, nigga. I don't give a fuck.
Well, I told you we on the same...
Look, you ain't doing nothing for me. You ain't putting no money in my pockets, nigga. I don't care.
Yeah, we heard enough of that crap, right? We know what her mentality is. She's like a little chameleon. She changes her little attitude and who she is as it fits her need, right? But this is this mentality that came into the organization because all camaradas are talking this way. They're all. I got hundreds of calls where they're talking this way. They're speaking with this N word and blood, and particularly the Florencia guys. Florencia guys are dropping that blood word all day long. It's flaming red colors, right? And they love it. They love it. And obviously, she loves this word, and all the camaradas are adopting this word, right? And you've seen this with people going to prison, like some of these rappers, right? That are going to prison and getting dealt with, right? Uh, I dare say that nobody's using that word among carnales, right? Maybe some of the carnales that are from the south side use that because they're raised around it, but they do that privately because they're not doing it with other brothers. Can you imagine a carnal talking to another carnal that way? I cannot. I cannot fathom that. And I don't think that they would tolerate it. Some of the old school guys, right? Some of the guys that are from my generation who are now veteranos in the organization. Uh, those are now the dinosaurs, the mustache Pete's. They're the mustache Pete's now. And this new Pepsi, this is the new Pepsi generation, right? But they're not called Pepsi. They're Edgars, right? And we're going to get into these guys in a second, right? Because Cecilia Virgin went from working with Lalo, taking over the county jail, and Pitches Detention Center, right? In fact, she put everybody in this facility, East Max, on the green light list one time because they didn't call and report to her. She got so filled with herself that she thought she could put a entire facility on the lista. That's the power she wielded, right? And let's face it, they empowered her, right? She was empowered with direct contact to carnales. In fact, that didn't stop. Uh, I did a Google search of her, and this is what I came up, right? Cecilia Sky Virgin, Cecilia Virgin, also known by the alias Sky, is a convicted criminal associate linked to the Sureño street gang and the Mexican Mafia La M. She gained significant public media attention after being exposed as a high level secretary who coordinated organized crime operations from outside prison walls, core criminal activities. The secretary role, Virginia acted as a crucial communication link for imprisoned Mexican Mafia member in the Los Angeles County Men's Central Jail using computers and cell phones with fraudulent accounts. She funneled operational commands to gang members on the streets and inside correctional facilities. Operational scope. Her responsibilities included coordinating drug trafficking operations, moving illicit funds, relaying direct orders for murders and violent assaults within the Los Angeles County jail system, arrest and legal actions. In 2013, she was arrested in Kansas. In May 2013, Los Angeles County Sheriff detectives traced her operations to a home in Salina, Kansas, where she had been living quietly for a year. She was arrested and extradited to California, facing multiple state charges. Virginia de Leon is originally from California. The Sheriff's Department said Virginia de Leon was charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to commit assault with a deadly weapon and 7 counts of street terrorism. According to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, she will be returned to California. She was held to answer, and she went to prison for about 12 years. In fact, she was just discharged from a halfway house in Long Beach after hooking up with Fox. She got indicted with Fox, right? So she was first hooked up with Lalo. Then she got hooked up in this indictment in Operation La Jale, or Operation Dirty Thirds, actually. Uh, and 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 she got indicted, and she went to the Fed. She did a gang of time, right? And she just got out. And one would think that she learned her lesson, right? One would think, hey man, that's enough for me. I know where this leads. I know what speaking on the phone can do, and I know what associating with people like this can do, right? But no, then she hooked up with uh, uh, Wicked. She hooked up with Wicked from Florencia, Leonardo Laredo. I called him Wizard before, and I actually put the hat on it because I was actually getting confused right now. So I wanted to get the name correct. This is Wicked from Florencia, Leonardo Laredo, who's currently facing RICO charges in the Central District in California right now. In fact, he's in a federal housing facility. I don't know if he's in MDC or Santa Ana or one of the other facilities that the United States Marshal Service utilizes to house Mexican Mafia members. But she hooked up uh, with this Laredo right here. And she is now not just his secretary, but his girl. In fact, she replaced this individual's wife and moved her out of the way. And she is the reina of Florencia right now. And that brings in the Edgars. Yep, you knew it. Edgars were coming into this when we brought Sky into it. The Edgars. The Edgars have risen. And that's for real. I mean, that's no joke. That Cecilia Sky Virgin has a close affinity and association with the Edgar generation. Listen to her language, right? You heard her language in that call, and that's not an isolated incident, right? Like I said, I got over 1,000 calls with Cecilia, and and she uses this language frequently. She this is one of the individuals she surrounds herself with. That's around her shop. I remember I told you that she replaced Laredo's wife as a primary operator of a store that was once belonged to Laredo's wife. And that's true. These individuals uh, frequent that location, and these are Edgars, right? This individual here, 10 fingers, 10 rings. I don't know what he calls himself. He's got a bunch of different names, but he's an Edgar. The other guy was an Edgar. This guy just paroled out of level 4 prison, and here he is doing an interview. In this brief clip, I want you to hear this right here. So everybody knows that you're not supposed to do interviews at all. And then level 4 guy gets out of prison, Southsider, obviously Florencia Southside, dropping the N word, right? This is not an aberration. This is not an isolated incident. All these guys use this, right? In fact, this is Cecilia Sky Virgin redone, version 2, right? And this is her storefront depicted in her website. This is a picture of her in a video that was shot where this interview in the previous slide had done an interview, right? In fact, Cecilia can be heard in this video speaking in the background. Now, you'd think this that she's been federally indicted, she's been indicted by the states, she's been extradited, she's served time, that she would keep a low pro, but she allows herself to be captured on YouTube video by a content creator and allows her voice to be captured again. And then she blasts all this stuff on the internet, right? Because this is off her website. This picture is not. This is her store, right? LA Sky, that same alley, this very alley where the interview took place. And what does it say right there? LA La Sky Store, or LA Sky Store by Cecilia, right? They have a new sign here now, it's painted, right? These are some of the products she sells off of her website. It's a nice little store. But again, it belonged to Laredo's wife, and now it's hers. And now she's the queen of Florencia. And the homeboys ain't liking it. Uh, from all accounts, they don't like the fact that this occurred. But they have little or no say because Cecilia's la reina, right? She's the queen now. In fact, I want you to hear this audio. And I just played you an exemplar of Sky's voice, and this is extracted from that video where these Edgars are doing interviews. I want you to hear this now, and if you listen real carefully, you'll hear Sky in the background. That is none other than Sky Virgin, standing right next to somebody recording, letting her voice being captured again. You know what? Maybe they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. And this is her with the Brazilian butt lift and the new hair and the new look. This is the new revised version of Sky Virgin. I think we might classify her as a buchona now. This is a really grainy photo. I'm sure that there are better quality photos out there. If anybody's got one, please send it and we'll put it up. But this isn't it, right? This isn't it. This isn't what really shows you what the Edgar generation is about: interviews and N words and this kind of language and this kind of mentality, right? It's this that shocked me. It shocked me, right? Because this is the Queen of Florencia. This is the Queen of Florencia that filed a court action against me. It wasn't a lawsuit or anything like that. This is her contacting the courts and asking them to investigate me. I'm dead serious. This is public record. This is a motion she filed for a protective order for confidential federal records. I guess she doesn't want anybody to know what's in her federal records or her calls or the type of person she is, right? And this is her representing herself in propria persona. She respectfully moves this court to reaffirm and enforce a prior sealing order and protective order concerning wiretap recordings obtained in this case. These recordings have surfaced on YouTube where they are publicly accessible and monetized without authorization. Because YouTube requires an official court order confirming that these materials maintained sealed or are lawfully published, I request judicial intervention. And then the record reflects that intercepted communications and related applications were under sealing order and protective order by the court in accordance with applicable laws. The court has ever authorized these wiretaps to be released. This is actually a error typo. It's just never authorized. The record reflects that intercepted communications and related applications were subject to sealing and or protective order in accordance with 18 U.S.C. Section 2511 and 2518 8 and B. No court ever authorized a public release. These recordings were produced solely for the purpose of criminal discovery and remain protected under the court's prior orders. Here's the part. I became aware that portions of these sealed wiretaps recordings were uploaded to YouTube and being monetized for advertising revenue. The individual responsible, Rene Enriquez, a recurring consultant and witness for state and federal law enforcement, appears to have retained and distributed these materials unlawfully. All right, so she goes on. She asks YouTube to take me down. She asks the court to issue an order. And then she asks this: direct the United States Attorney's Office to investigate and report to court any breach of discovery, custody, or chain of possession relating to these recordings or authorize public dissemination. And then she wants to notify the United States Marshal of my witness security status and the actions of Rene Enriquez, whose conduct appears to violate the terms and intent of the Federal Witness Protection Program. So this is signed by her. This is her document. It is public record, and it goes on and on. She puts a picture of this is called a video grab, right? She does a video grab, and then she transcribes the whole document. The very thing she's trying to seal and keep secret, she makes public record in the public filing. I mean, a smart person would have filed under seal, right? And asked that the court seal the document based on sensitivity, whatever her justification was, right? But this document is extensive. It's 21 pages long. And she asked the court to investigate me. She asked the United States Attorney's Office to investigate me and the United States Marshal's Office to investigate me. Now, this is gangster right here, right? These are mob representatives right here filing documents against me. And I don't mind. I don't mind at all. I know that what I do is legal. I stay within my lane. And I would never put anybody in danger. Even if there was something secretive about somebody and it wasn't known publicly, I would not put that out there. Just not my lane to do that. It's not my style to do that. Because, you know what? I've been put in that position. And people have done it to me, right? And I wouldn't do it in return. I wouldn't do it for views. I wouldn't do it for money. I wouldn't do it for anything, right? So if anybody had that fear, it wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen on my channel. But here is the Queen of Florencia with direct access to Laredo and a bunch of other cardenales she's worked for, filing documents in the court about me, right? In fact, asking them to demonetize me and take my channel down and have me investigated, right, by the United States Marshal Service and the Department of Justice, right? This is the United States Attorney's Office, it's the Department of Justice, right? And it just shows the hypocrisy, and I've been showing you that in these debrief videos and these secret videos where cardenales interview with SSU agents and the debriefings. I'm showing you the hypocrisy of the organization. And if this isn't hypocrisy, I don't know what is, folks. And this is Edgar Generation stuff. This is the mentality here. Maybe she thought this was never going to surface, right? But I've had it for months, right? Obviously, I beat this challenge. The courts ruled in my favor because I let's face it, folks. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm smart enough to know between right and wrong and utilizing documents that I use, right? And again, I would never put anybody in danger, and that was never my intent, and that's not my intent now, and I wouldn't do it. But this is the Edgar type generation. Like I said, the Edgars are prison. Interviews are okay. Dropping the N word's okay. Filing court documents against people, asking them to be asking that those individuals be investigated is okay. So if that ain't Edgar generation crap, then what is, right? I guess this is acceptable today. And that's my spiel. That's my spiel today. Let me know what you think, folks. Let me know what you think about this issue. Let me know what you think about Sky Virgin and her Edgar mentality and the people she surrounds herself with and her practices, right? For me, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, that's who you are, and I accept whoever they are, right? But don't portray to be gangster if you're not gangster, right? And I'm not even that. I dare say I never was. It was a facade with me. And I think it's a facade with a lot of these people. They like the idea of being a gangster, but they're not really gangsters, right? And that shows itself. They got a saying in Spanish, todo sale a flote, right? And and it comes out. It comes out in the wash. That's what it means. Everything comes out in the wash. And this is the new Queen of Florencia displaying Edgar Generation mentality stuff. And just give you something to think about for a Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed it, folks. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. Share it with a friend. Thumbs up. Peace out. Have a wonderful Monday.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Bootser.